What happens when a Hollywood legend walks into a talk show expecting a normal conversation, but instead gets ambushed by a host who thinks she knows better than everyone else? It only took one comment about patriotism for Sunny Hostin to ignite a firestorm that would end with Clint Eastwood doing something nobody ever thought they would see on daytime television. The studio lights were bright that morning as Clint Eastwood walked onto the View set. The audience erupted in applause. Here was a man who had given decades to American cinema, who had directed masterpieces, who had become an icon not just in Hollywood, but across the entire country. He gave a small wave, that signature Clint Eastwood smile crossing his face as he made his way to the interview chair. Whoopi Goldberg started the interview off smoothly. "Clint, it is so good to have you here. We have been wanting to sit down with you for years." Clint nodded. "Well, I appreciate the invitation. Happy to be here." Joy Behar jumped in next. "Your new film is getting incredible reviews. What made you want to tell this particular story?" Clint leaned forward slightly, his voice calm and measured like it always was. "I think it is a story that needs to be told. It is about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. It is about sacrifice and what it means to stand up for what you believe in." The conversation flowed naturally for the first few minutes. Sarah Haynes asked about his directing process. Alyssa Farah Griffin mentioned how much she admired his work ethic. The audience was engaged, laughing at his stories from movie sets, nodding along as he talked about the craft of filmmaking. Then Sunny Hostin saw her opening. "Clint, I want to shift gears for a moment," Sunny said, her tone changing noticeably. "You have been very vocal about your political views over the years. Some would say controversial views." Clint remained calm. "I have opinions like everyone else. I do not think having an opinion is controversial." Sunny pressed on. "But when you have a platform as big as yours, do you not think you have a responsibility to use it more carefully? Especially when some of your views align with movements that many people find, well, problematic?" You could feel the temperature in the room shift. The audience got quiet. The other hosts glanced at each other. Clint kept his composure. "I think everyone has a responsibility to be honest. I've never claimed to speak for anyone but myself. I share what I believe, and people are free to agree or disagree." "But that is the problem, though, is it not?" Sunny leaned forward, her voice getting sharper. "When you speak at political rallies, when you make statements that embolden certain groups, you cannot just hide behind saying, 'It is just your opinion.'" Whoopi tried to step in. "Sunny, maybe we should." "No, Whoopi, I think this is important." Sunny cut her off. "We have a responsibility on this show to ask tough questions." Clint's jaw tightened slightly, but his voice remained even. "What exactly are you accusing me of?" "I am not accusing you of anything," Sunny said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "I am simply asking if you recognize the impact your words have, especially on communities that already feel marginalized." "Marginalized by what?" Clint asked. "By people having different opinions?" Sunny scoffed. "That is a very simplistic way of looking at complex issues." "Maybe complex issues have simple solutions," Clint replied, "like respecting that people can disagree without being enemies." Joy Behar jumped in, trying to support Sunny. "But Clint, you have to admit that some of the rhetoric coming from the political side you support has been divisive." Clint turned to Joy. "Divisive is in the eye of the beholder. What I see as common sense, you might see as divisive. That does not make either of us right or wrong. It just means we see things differently." "Common sense?" Sunny's voice was rising now. "Is it common sense to support policies that hurt immigrants, that hurt women, that hurt people of color?" "Now hold on," Clint said, his voice getting firmer. "I have never supported hurting anyone. That is a gross mischaracterization of what I believe, and frankly, it is offensive." Sarah Haynes tried to mediate. "I think maybe we are getting a little heated here. Can we?" "No, Sarah, I want to hear this," Sunny interrupted again. "Because I think it is important that Clint understands how his words land for people who do not look like him." Clint stared at Sunny for a long moment. "What does that mean? People who do not look like me?" "You know exactly what it means," Sunny shot back. "You are a wealthy white man in Hollywood. You have had every advantage. Maybe you should listen more and talk less when it comes to issues affecting communities you have never been a part of." The audience gasped. Even some of the hosts looked uncomfortable now. Alyssa Farah Griffin shifted in her seat. Whoopi closed her eyes briefly, as if bracing for what was coming next. Clint's voice dropped lower, more controlled, which somehow made it more powerful. So, because of the color of my skin and the money I've earned through 50 plus years of hard work, my opinions do not matter? That is what you were saying? I am saying you need perspective, Sunny replied. I am saying that maybe, just maybe, you do not understand what it is like for people who have not had your privileges. And you do? Clint asked. You sit here on a television show, you make a good living, you have a platform. What struggles are you going through that I could not possibly understand? Sunny's face flushed. I have faced discrimination my entire life. I have had to work twice as hard to get half as far. That is something you will never understand. I grew up with nothing, Clint said, his voice steady but intense. I worked odd jobs. I struggled. I fought for every opportunity I got. Nobody handed me anything. The idea that you can sit there and dismiss everything I have done, everything I believe, because of assumptions you are making about my life, that is the real prejudice here. Prejudice? Sunny nearly shouted. You are going to lecture me about prejudice? Joy tried to back up Sunny. Clint, I think what Sunny is trying to say is… I know what she is trying to say, Clint interrupted, something he rarely did. She is trying to say that my opinions are worthless because of who I am. She is trying to silence me because we disagree politically. And frankly, I did not come here to be attacked. Attacked? Sunny laughed, but it was not a friendly laugh. You think this is an attack? This is a conversation. Or are you so used to everyone treating you like royalty that any pushback feels like an attack? Alyssa finally spoke up. Sunny, come on. That is not fair. Stay out of this, Alyssa, Sunny snapped. Whoopi raised her voice. Okay, everyone needs to take a breath here. But Sunny was not done. She turned back to Clint. You want to talk about respect? How about respecting the fact that your views hurt people? How about respecting that maybe, at your age, you are out of touch with modern America? Out of touch? Clint repeated. Because I believe in personal responsibility? Because I believe in the Constitution? Because I think people should be judged by their character and not their skin color? Those are old-fashioned values, apparently. Those are dog whistles, Sunny said. Everyone knows what you really mean. Clint shook his head. No, you think you know what I mean. You have decided who I am based on your own biases. You have not listened to a single thing I have actually said. You just want to put me in a box so you can feel superior. Superior? Sunny's voice was incredulous. I am trying to educate you. I do not need education from you, Clint said firmly. I have lived a full life. I have worked with people from every background imaginable. I have learned from experiences you could not imagine. And I certainly do not need lectures from someone who thinks disagreeing with her politics makes someone a bad person. Sarah tried again. Can we please just… Let him talk, Sunny said sarcastically. Let him tell us all how hard his life has been. Clint stood up. The audience went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop in that studio. I came here in good faith, Clint said, looking directly at Sunny. I came here to talk about my work, to have a conversation. But you did not want a conversation. You wanted a chance to grandstand. You wanted to show off for your audience by taking down someone you disagree with. Sit down, Clint, Whoopi said, trying to regain control. Let's talk this through. But Clint was not sitting down. I have been disrespected before. I have been attacked before. But I have never been on a show where the host actively tries to twist everything I say into something ugly, where she dismisses my entire life because I do not fall in line with her worldview. Sunny stood up too now. You want to talk about twisting words? Your entire political philosophy is based on twisting the truth to fit your narrative. My narrative, Clint's voice rose for the first time. My narrative is that people should be free. Free to think, free to speak, free to live their lives without being told they are wrong by people like you, who think they have all the answers. People like me? Sunny challenged. What does that mean? It means people who are so convinced of their own righteousness that they cannot see past their own noses, Clint said. It means people who claim to be open-minded but are actually the most closed-minded people in the room. It means people who preach tolerance but show none to anyone who disagrees with them. Joy stood up now too. Clint, you are out of line. I am out of line? Clint looked around at all of them. I am not the one who turned this interview into an ambush. I am not the one who started making personal attacks. I came here to be a guest, and I have been treated like a criminal. Alyssa spoke quietly. I do not think anyone meant for it to go this way. Maybe not everyone, Clint said, looking pointedly at Sunny, but someone certainly did. Sunny crossed her arms. If you cannot handle tough questions, maybe you should not be doing interviews. Tough questions? Clint laughed, but there was no humor in it. You have not asked me one tough question. You have made accusations. You have put words in my mouth. You have insulted me. But you have not asked me anything resembling a real question. Whoopi tried one more time. Clint, please sit down. We can reset this. Clint shook his head. No, we cannot. Because the problem is not what was said. The problem is what was meant. And what was meant is clear. I am not welcome here unless I agree with everything she says. He pointed at Sunny. That is not true, Sarah said. We have guests with different viewpoints all the time. Do you treat them all like this? Clint asked. Or is it just the ones who dare to have conservative values? Sunny jumped back in. Your conservative values are hurting people. When are you going to take responsibility for that? My values are not hurting anyone, Clint said, his patience clearly at its end. My values are about freedom, opportunity, hard work. If that hurts you, that says more about you than it does about me. There it is, Sunny said triumphantly. There is the real Clint Eastwood, dismissive, condescending, unable to see past his own privilege. You do not know me, Clint said quietly, but with intensity. You do not know what I have been through. You do not know what I believe deep down. You only know what you have decided to believe about me because it fits your agenda. My agenda is equality, Sunny said. My agenda is justice. What is yours? My agenda is living my life according to my principles and letting others do the same, Clint replied. But apparently that is too much to ask. The other hosts were looking back and forth between Clint and Sunny like they were watching a tennis match. The audience was completely still, transfixed by what was unfolding. Sunny took a step toward Clint. You know what your problem is? You are stuck in the past. The world has moved on, but you have not. Maybe I do not want to move on to a world where people are judged by their politics instead of their character, Clint said. Maybe I do not want to move on to a world where having a different opinion gets you attacked on national television. Nobody is attacking you, Joy insisted. We are having a dialogue. This is not a dialogue, Clint said firmly. A dialogue requires two people listening to each other. Nobody here has listened to a word I have said. You have only waited for your turn to attack. Alyssa spoke up again. Clint, I have been listening, and I understand your frustration. Do you? Clint looked at her. Then why have you not said anything to defend civil discourse? Why have you let this turn into a circus? Sunny laughed. A circus? You are the one making a scene. I am making a scene? Clint's voice was incredulous. I have been sitting here trying to have a reasonable conversation while you have been launching grenades at me. If you think asking about your political views is launching grenades, you are even more fragile than I thought, Sunny said. That was it. That was the moment. You could see it in Clint's face. The decision had been made. I am done, Clint said simply. Whoopi stood up quickly. Clint, wait. Do not leave like this. But Clint was already removing his microphone. I should have known better than to come here. I should have known this was not about promoting my film or having a real conversation. This was about scoring political points. If you leave, you are just proving you cannot handle criticism, Sunny called out. Clint stopped and turned back to her. Criticism is fine. I have been criticized my entire career, but there is a difference between criticism and character assassination. There is a difference between asking hard questions and ambushing someone with accusations disguised as questions. So, you are running away, Sunny said. Just like every other person who gets challenged on their views. I am not running, Clint said calmly. I am choosing not to participate in this anymore. There is a difference. Joy stepped toward him. Clint, please, let's just talk this out. Talk what out? Clint asked. She has made up her mind about me. Nothing I say will change that. I could sit here for another hour, and it would not matter, because she does not want to understand me. She wants to defeat me. Sunny smiled coldly. I already have. The other host looked at her in shock. Even Whoopi seemed taken aback by that comment. Clint nodded slowly. And there it is. This was never about conversation. It was about winning. Well, congratulations. You won. I hope you are proud of yourself. I am proud that I stood up to someone spreading harmful ideas, Sunny said. Harmful ideas, Clint repeated. Like freedom? Like personal responsibility? Like judging people as individuals instead of as members of groups? Yes, very harmful. Sarah tried to reach out. Clint, I really think if we just But Clint was already walking toward the exit. Thank you to those of you who tried to keep this civil. As for the rest, I hope someday you learn that different opinions are not threats, they are opportunities to learn. Learn what? Sunny called after him. How to be more intolerant. Clint stopped one more time at the edge of the stage. He looked back at Sunny with that classic Clint Eastwood stare, the one that had frozen bad guys in westerns for decades. Learn that treating people with respect, even when you disagree with them, is not weakness, he said. It is strength, something you clearly do not understand. And with that, Clint Eastwood walked off the view set. The audience did not know whether to applaud or stay silent. Some people started clapping. Others sat in stunned silence. The hosts looked at each other, clearly unsure how to proceed. Sunny sat back down, trying to look composed, but you could see she was rattled. She had pushed and pushed, thinking she could make Clint Eastwood back down. Instead, he had walked away on his own terms. Whoopi put her head in her hands. We need to go to commercial. But the cameras were still rolling. They caught everything. They caught Sunny trying to maintain her composure. They caught Joy looking uncomfortable. They caught Sarah and Alyssa exchanging glances that said they knew this had gone too far. They caught Whoopi looking exhausted. Joy finally broke the silence. Well, that was intense. Sunny straightened in her chair. He could not handle being questioned. That is what happens when people live in echo chambers. Alyssa shook her head. Sunny, come on. That was more than questioning. That was a lot. I said what needed to be said. Sunny insisted. Someone has to hold these people accountable. Accountable for what? Alyssa asked. For having different political views? For using their platform irresponsibly, Sunny said. For spreading ideas that hurt vulnerable communities. Sarah finally spoke up. I think maybe we could have approached that differently. He is a guest. We invited him here. And as hosts, we have a responsibility to ask hard questions, Sunny countered. I am not going to apologize for that. Whoopi looked at her. Nobody is asking you to apologize for asking hard questions, but maybe think about how you ask them. What does that mean? Sunny's defenses were up. It means there is a way to challenge someone without attacking them, Whoopi said carefully. There's a way to have a political discussion without it becoming personal. It was not personal, Sunny protested. I was talking about his politics. You told him his opinions did not matter because of who he is, Joy pointed out quietly. That felt pretty personal. Sunny looked around at the other hosts. For the first time, she seemed to realize that she did not have their full support. So you are all turning on me now? She asked. Nobody is turning on you, Sarah said gently. But we just watched a Hollywood legend walk off our show. That is not nothing. He made the choice to leave, Sunny said. That is on him. Is it though? Alyssa asked. Because from where I was sitting, it looked like he was pushed. The stage manager was frantically signaling them. They needed to either go to commercial or wrap up the show somehow, but nobody seemed to know what to do. Whoopi took a deep breath. Okay, we need to address this. We just had a very heated exchange with Clint Eastwood. Tempers flared. Things were said. He chose to leave. We have to acknowledge that happened. I stand by everything I said, Sunny stated firmly. Whoopi looked at her. I'm sure you do. But standing by what you said and being proud of how you said it are two different things. Before Sunny could respond, Whoopi turned to the camera. We are going to take a break. When we come back, we will discuss what just happened and try to make sense of it all. The commercial break started, but backstage, the real drama was just beginning. Producers were scrambling. Network executives were being called. Social media was already exploding with reactions. When they came back from commercial, the mood on set was subdued. Whoopi addressed the camera directly. We just had a very difficult moment on this show. Our guest, Clint Eastwood, left during what became a very heated discussion about politics and values. Joy jumped in. These are passionate times. People feel strongly about things. But we also have to maintain respect, Sarah added, even in disagreement. Sunny sat quietly for a moment, then spoke. I asked questions that I felt needed to be asked. If that made our guest uncomfortable, I cannot control that. Alyssa looked at her. But maybe we should think about the environment we create, about whether we are actually trying to understand people or just prove them wrong. I was not trying to prove him wrong, Sunny said. I was trying to hold him accountable. Whoopi held up her hand. I think we all need to reflect on what happened here today, about how we talk to people we disagree with, about what kind of conversations we want to have on this show. The segment ended awkwardly. The show limped through the rest of the hour, but everyone knew that what had happened with Clint Eastwood would be the only thing anyone talked about. In the makeup room afterward, the hosts had their own private discussion. Sarah was the first to speak. "That was rough." Joy nodded. "I have never seen anything like that on this show." Alyssa looked at Sunny. "Do you really think that went the way you wanted it to?" Sunny was defensive. "I said what I believe. I am not going to pretend I'm sorry for that." "Nobody is asking you to be sorry for what you believe," Whoopi said, coming into the room. "But how we treat guests matters. How we conduct ourselves matters." "He came on the show with political baggage," Sunny argued. "That was fair game." "Everything is fair game," Whoopi agreed. "But there is a way to approach things that allows for actual conversation instead of confrontation." Sunny stood up. "So I am the bad guy now? I am the one who gets blamed because a guest could not handle being questioned?" "You are not the bad guy," Sarah said softly. "But maybe acknowledge that it could have gone better." Sunny grabbed her things. "I am not going to apologize for being passionate about issues that matter." And with that, she left the room. The remaining hosts sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Joy spoke. "This is going to be everywhere." "I know," Whoopi said quietly. "People are going to have opinions," Alyssa added. "They always do," Whoopi replied. Back in the studio, crew members were already talking about what they had witnessed. The audience members who had been there were texting friends and family about what they had seen. Videos were being uploaded, clips were being shared. The moment Clint Eastwood walked off, the view would become one of those television moments that people would talk about for years. Not because of what was said about politics or policies, but because of how it showed the breakdown of civil discourse. Because it showed what happens when passion overtakes respect. When the desire to win an argument becomes more important than the desire to understand another person. Clint Eastwood had walked onto that stage expecting a normal interview. He had been prepared for tough questions. What he had not been prepared for was someone who had already decided he was the enemy before he had even sat down. Someone who saw him not as a person with experiences and beliefs shaped by a long life, but as a symbol of everything she opposed. And when pushed far enough, even Clint Eastwood, known for his patience and measured responses, had decided enough was enough. He had not yelled. He had not cursed. He had not made a scene in the traditional sense. He had simply chosen to leave rather than continue participating in something that had stopped being a conversation and had become something else entirely. The stage sat empty now. The lights were being turned off. The crew was packing up equipment. But the impact of what had happened would not be packed away so easily. It would spark debates about how we talk to each other, about whether we still knew how to disagree respectfully, about whether television shows were interested in dialogue or just in drama. Clint Eastwood had made hundreds of films. He had won Academy Awards. He had become an American icon. But this moment, this single interview gone wrong, would become one of the most talked about moments of his long career. Not because of anything he had done, but because of what had been done to him. And because of how he had responded with dignity, even in the face of disrespect. The sun was setting outside the studio. Another day of television was coming to an end. But the conversation about what had happened on The View that day was just beginning.